Hey there, and welcome to the Virginia Wingard Memorial United Methodist Church's YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Sarah Kate, and I'm the Director of Christian Education here at Virginia Wingard. And this is a brand new series that we started last week called What is the Bible? Welcome to session 2 of the What is the Bible series. In this session, we're going to be continuing to talk about setting, something that we started last week. So as we continue along with setting, let's start by talking about roads and travel in the ancient landscape. Early roads were largely determined by the landscape. For instance, in Judah, which is very hilly, the roads follow the mountain ridges instead of going down the valley and back up to the peak. And as we talked about last week, when Abe went from Ur to Canaan, he followed along the Euphrates River. Now, water near these roads was extremely important, but at the same time, roads in very deep valleys could be at risk of flooding in the rainy season. In 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 1, it's talking about the seasons, spring and summer, in relation to travel. And it says this, the time when kings go off to war. And this was the time when kings go off to war because in spring and summer, the roads were dry. Rainfall during these seasons were low, and the grain along the roads would be readily available for anyone traveling, for troops that needed to eat while traveling. So around this time, we're looking at roads that were low enough to be near water and high enough to not get flooded. By the time Abe got to Canaan, there were already 2 international trade routes or highways that ran, one along the coast and the other along the east of the Jordan River. One specific route that ran from Beersheba in the south all the way up to Shechem in the north via Hebron, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, up to Bethel and Shiloh appears over and over again in biblical texts. And I'm going to show you guys what that looks like maybe right here. This trade route, this international highway, is traveled by a lot of people in the Bible. Abraham uses this highway in his journey, and there's a map of that right here. Jacob uses this same highway in part of his journey. In Numbers chapter 13, the spies that go into Canaan also use part of this route, and many others travel along this same exact route. Paul, Elijah, it's mentioned over and over again, and if it's not specifically mentioned, we can use these maps that we now have to see the route. So these international routes, the big roads, by the time of the New Testament may have looked very similar to those roads that were buried under the volcanic ash around 79 AD in Pompeii near Mount Vesuvius. And the reason being is because when they were buried under volcanic ash, they were preserved. And we have great pictures, and that's still there. These roads were very similar to maybe a New Testament type road. It was around the New Testament, the time period, that Romans were perfecting the art of road engineering. And this meant leveling the ground, adding curbs, cutting rocks and laying paving stones, as well as thinking about drainage for roads. Prior to these advanced road systems, any spots that were ruts or eroded would have had to been filled in and otherwise cleared or maintained. So in Luke 3 verses 4 and 5, when it says, prepare the way for the Lord, make straight paths for him, every valley shall be filled in, every mountain and hill made low, this isn't just a poetic expression of clearing the way for Jesus. It's an actual, understanding of road terminology, construction, clearing the road, they really would have had to clear in the ruts and take out any hills or peaks or other inconsistencies to make the path more clear. So let's talk about the area of the Holy Land. There are 4 different areas we can look at when we talk about the Holy Land. The first is the coastal plain, and this from the Mediterranean Sea to the point of Jerusalem is about 12 miles wide. Then there's the Central Mountain Range. This is where Jerusalem lies. It's at an elevation of about 2,500 feet, and it's about, this Central Mountain Range is about 36 miles wide. The third area here is the Rift Valley area where the Jordan River is located, and this valley extends almost 4,000 miles from Turkey, from the southern tip of Turkey to Africa. The last area as part of the Holy Land is the Transjordan Mountains, which rise up from the Rift Valley and then slope down into the Arabian Desert. The maps I'm showing you are from a Then and Now Bible pictorial book. The great thing about these maps is that you can see the original, the Holy Land, the old names for everything, and then there's also an overlay that lays on top of the map and shows you the outline of the current landscapes. So anything that's in red is what the landscape of this land looks like now. Here you can see the outline of Syria, Israel, West Bank, Egypt, and Jordan, overlaying on the old map of what used to be. Let's talk about the location of Jerusalem and Jerusalem as a city. Jerusalem grows and shifts many times as a location throughout biblical text. For instance, when King David captures Jerusalem from the Jebusites in 2 Samuel chapter 5, you can check that out, it was only, the city was only about 15 acres and the population was only about 2,000 people. Then, under King Solomon, Jerusalem grew to 37 acres and just under about 5,000 in population. And by the time Hezekiah was king, Jerusalem was 150 acres with a population of 25,000 people. I'm going to show you a map, this is a stylized map of Jerusalem, what it may have looked like, our best guess based on historical records. But this Jerusalem is maybe what Jerusalem may have looked like in 2 Kings chapter 20 and in 2 Chronicles chapter 32, when Hezekiah built the tunnel to pipe water from the Gihon, Gihon spring into the city's walls. We will continue to reference geography, landscape, and setting as we move throughout this series. Next week, we are going to talk about writing. When writing started, how did we get the Bible that we now have today? So I want to end with this. As Christians, it's valuable for us to know and learn about Jerusalem and learn about landscape and learn about the setting of the Bible as a text. And it's valuable not only because it adds meaning to our study and understanding of Jesus's ministry, but also because it helps us grow in our identity as disciples. Think about it this way. Maybe you have taken a DNA test, or maybe someone in your family has used something like Ancestry.com. If you've used something like this, maybe you've learned about a place that your family may have been in the past. You could have learned more about the areas that you came from. Similarly, when we look at the location of the call of the first disciples, or when we can point to where Jesus appeared to those on the Emmaus Road, we too can connect our identity as disciples to early Christians, to those early disciples, the earliest disciples, and also to our relationship with Christ. So that's why setting is so important. And that's why we're going to continue to look at where these places are and make sure that we're familiar with the setting of this great book. Maybe you have a map in the back of your Bible or throughout your Bible or a couple of maps. If so, take a look at those this week. Look over the pathway or the journey that Abraham took. Look at the journey that Jacob took if it's in your Bible. Or take a look at your map and refer back to this video and the map that I show you here. Get acquainted with, is Jerusalem south or north of Egypt? Or get acquainted with where some of these place names are, so that as we talk about the Bible and the stories that come up and we learn about where people were going, when we talk about these stories and places that people were going in the Bible, you'll be more familiar with where they are in this landscape. Thanks again for tuning into this session of Where is the Bible? We'll continue on with this series next week. Same time, Friday. The video will come out on Fridays. But in the meantime, make sure you check out our church's Facebook page. We have a lot of great events coming up that are going to be live streamed from church. For instance, Maundy Thursday will be live streamed next week from church. And then we have a fantastic video that's going to come out next Friday for Good Friday. That's the service of nails. And then the following week is Easter. So if you're watching this now, be sure to subscribe for a lot of great updates and videos to come.